Hey there, folks. Chris McLean back with another episode. And on the show today, I have Gia from Elite Digital Campaigns. They specialize in lead generation and content creation for international property developers across Asia, Europe, and Australia. And collectively, they have marketed over 1.5 billion with a B worth of projects. Originally started her business from the front of her house, Gia earned $500 in her first month and then grew it to $1 million business with an office and all that good stuff. And at the peak of COVID, so about a year ago today, and then completely digitized her business, moved to Berlin, where she's now based, and now operates with a virtual team of 8. Gia,
Hello.
that's some kind of a growth plan, that's a heck of a story by the sounds of it. I'm excited to get in and hear all about it. Welcome on the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'm delighted to be here, and hopefully I can share my story, and if there's anyone that can relate, to take some sort of, precedence that it can happen.
Yeah, amazing. So you're obviously an Aussie living now in Berlin, so it all started for you here in Australia. So
Yes.
It's always good to understand the start of the journey. So how did it all start? Had you been working in advertising, marketing, or real estate, or anything like that before? Did this just kind of pop up over COVID? How did this all happen, and how did you end up in Berlin running this $1 million company?
Well, I guess if you just rewind the story back even 5 to 6 years ago, I actually had a career in finance and insurance, and I worked probably about 60 plus hours a week solidly for like 7 years. Got extremely burnt out, and I thought I really needed a change. And I thought I could go into real estate. And so I transitioned into real estate, and immediately I noticed that there was a really big deficiency in the market, in the way that people were using digital media to actually promote not only themselves but also their the products. And then just somehow I came up with a business idea. I proposed it to my colleague who was sitting next to me at that point, and within that afternoon she actually came back and said, I've got a paying client for you that wants to use your services immediately. And I know that as an entrepreneur, and speaking to many other business mentors, they say the first thing to asking if you have a business is someone willing to pay you for it? And are they willing to pay for it over and over again? Meaning, do you have a sustainable market? And immediately I realized, well, if someone is willing to pay for it so quickly, and there is a relatively large market penetration, and there's a high level of repeat business. And literally within that afternoon, I made up my mind that I was going to start my digital agency. And I had actually transitioned out of a real estate career. In my first year, I sold 20 houses. And so I think for a lot of people hopefully in real estate would agree, to sell 20 houses in your first year, that was a lot of hustle. But it felt right. It felt really right to start my business. And then I made $500 from the front of my house, and I just kept cycling on. And then within a year, I had an office in the CBD hiring local staff. And then I fell in love with a German lady, and my sister lives in Berlin. I went to visit my sister then, and I absolutely fell in love with the city as well. And COVID happened. So what happened was that my business literally overnight, it contracted. And I was also at that particular point at a junction where I really wanted to make some changes, because whilst going into the office every day to work and to see my staff and to create that culture was nourishing, but I just deep down knew something wasn't right. There was a disconnect. And during the COVID period, it really allowed me to really look at my business with a different pair of lenses. And as I would say, when you try and solve a problem, you can't come back with the same thinking as the way you had created that problem, right? And then I was traveling around the country in a van during COVID with my girlfriend. And at that same time, I was still able to operate my business as long as we could find Wi-Fi. And after that, I realized that that this business model could easily be replicated across the world. And at that particular point as well, I just kept meditating, and I asked the one thing that I think a lot of people really should ask themselves all the time, and not just once, is what would you do right now if you knew that you could not fail and money was not a problem? And the same answer kept coming back over and over again on a very personal, deeply connected level. And it said, move to Berlin and transform your business into a digital consulting overseas. And the hardest part was really making that decision. And then after I made that decision, it was a huge relief. Everything then fell into place. The universe conspired to help me. And then I went back to all of my clients and I asked them and I said, look, I am moving overseas. I still remember even walking on the plane to go to Berlin. I was still on the phone to one of my big clients and I said, I'm now moving overseas. I want you to hear it from me and not through social. I obviously really enjoy working with you. So the question is, do you still want me? For overseas, you have a chance now. We can break up. You can find someone else if that's what you've been thinking of. But otherwise, are you willing to take me and work with me just in spite of the time zones? And every single one of them, Chris, said they never considered anything else but working with me and my team. And they said, whether you work in India, whether you work in Berlin, whether you work in Hong Kong, whether you're even on the moon, like they were prepared to come with me. And so 10 months later, I'm still working with that same group of clients. And in fact, so I haven't lost a single client since I moved to Berlin. And I've now started working with even larger clients. And we're moving into different spaces and we're growing the business. I don't think I probably could have done, or maybe with the same level of enthusiasm had I stayed in Australia. So yeah, that's my story. And I have to say, yeah, as I move into my 1-year anniversary next month, everything has been extremely both joyful and also at the same time, I would probably say the word is not easy, but it's been fluid. Like there hasn't been any major challenges or abrasions or anything antagonistic that's made me think twice.
Amazing. Yeah, pretty sensational when you get a solid work ethic combined with sort of that internal value alignment. That's when things, exactly like you're saying, happen with ease and grace, and good things show up and opportunities happen. It's exactly like you said. You work, you put in the hard work. You had that work ethic. You had that diligence to show up and do the stuff you got to do. But you also had that internal alignment, right? Of that, asking yourself those important questions.
I think that was probably the missing link, you see. And I think a lot of, I think a lot of people go into business. Obviously, you're there to make money and you want to grow something. But I think what happens is that we fail to take stock, whether at every growth junction, whether or not that business is fully nourishing you across the different pillars of life. Like obviously, number one, the basic needs is it paying you enough money so that you can have a quality of life? Because, you need to come to work and make sure that you have been able to look after yourself, your family, all those things. And you show up in a much, much bigger way, right? Because you've fulfilled your basic needs. But then as you move on, you've still got to start asking you, is the business feeding your spiritual needs? Do you feel a sense of purpose? Are you getting joy? And are you excited to wake up and be in front of that computer or go and meet your clients? And I think if there's any doubt, then it's not a case of your business is wrong. It's probably a question is, how can you repivot and come back to that center? Yeah,
it's so important to always come back to self and who questions, as you said, who am I in this business? Is this the business that I want to be doing right now? And if the question's yes, great. Because I've got energy, I'm motivated, I'm loving what I'm doing, I'm showing up for my clients, I'm showing up for my team. That's amazing. I'm enjoying it. But a lot of the time you can find when you start showing up when it's just not fun anymore and the enjoyment's not there and every day is a struggle, that's a pretty slippery slope to burnout, to overwhelm, to stress, to all these types of things where there is this divergence between who I am and who I have to be to run my business starts to happen. So I love what you're saying, to finding that balance really is the critical thing, because we forget a lot of the time in business that we are human people, human beings behind the scenes, and that business is still a human endeavor, right?
It is. And I think a big part of what changed a lot is it wasn't just about growth, like just growth. It wasn't just about pure laser vision, because we're always constantly getting taught to build something that's scalable or saleable. And so we do everything. We're thinking, okay, how can we grow this into 100 people to work for us? How can we grow this into an 8-figure agency? How can I develop a process that so that at some point I can sell it? And I think when you focus on something that's so external, you again, the goals become misaligned. It's like looking through the wrong lenses. With the wrong glasses, when really, for example, what you're really looking, a lot of agency owners don't realize as well, it's not just about how big you're growing. The question is, how profitable are you, and how profitable are you across per client? And how that is really important, right? And again, looking back at the journeys, we haven't lost a single client since I've moved to Berlin. And that's because we now are not only servicing our clients with more passion, but it also means that I can choose the type of clients I want to bring on, because I'm no longer worried about revenue, because we already have reached a level of profitability that gives me a great quality of life and my staff great quality of life. So now the question, as a famous Taylor Swift would say, she's like, for me to do music now, it's not about creating Billboard #1s anymore or platinum selling albums. For her, it's about what does she want to do to further her music and her talent, and to bring joy to the world, in that it is in alignment with her. And I think that's what's happened here in the last 10 months, 11 months I've been in Berlin. It's like we now only bring on projects that I think are in alignment with my values, who we are, my business values. And is it fun? It's challenging. Are we making a difference to the world? Like, we work with property developers now, and now we're pivoting into international hotel development. So that's a space I never would have probably imagined I would do or could do when I was in Australia. But because you've elevated your thinking, the right people, you become magnetic, and the right people come into your business or see your content at the right time. So I think it just comes back again, it's not about growth at all cost. It's not about trying to build something immediately to sell. My friend who has sold his digital agency for $40 million and is now an AFR rich lister, he famously told me when I first started my business, I had all these grand plans. I was going to do this, I was going to do that. And I can't wait to sell it. And he said, don't think like that. He said, don't think like that. Think immediately, how can I build something that I truly love and I want to show up to every day? And then everything else will follow. And I have to say, just that little bit of advice now, coming back to it, it's really transformed, I would say, myself, my business, and the client relationships I have in the last year since being in Berlin.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's we can get so focused on, as you say, this big exit event or some sort of sellout or selling the business or finishing the business at day one, right? We're just getting started. I'm starting this business and I'm going to sell it. We haven't actually done anything yet, or gotten a client, or, as you said, gotten predictable growth, or got our office, or built our team. But we've seen on Instagram that an 8-figure business that's what I should be aiming for. So that's what I'm going to go out and build and sell. But if number one, if I do that, I miss the journey. I miss that process of going, okay, what's tomorrow going to hold? What's tomorrow going to hold? And you're a perfect example of you from day one. Would you ever have picked living in Berlin, moving into the hotel industry, all these things that now are lighting your fire? You probably never would have written those down on paper at the start, because as you've evolved, you've become a different person, and your agency's become a different business.
And I think what happens is that the person you are when you start your agency on the first day, for me 4 years ago, the needs, the woman that I was very different, right? You know, and so you start the business with very different expectations. But now, you know, 4 years later, as I hit my late 30s, my needs, my desires have changed from my early 30s. So why shouldn't your business change the same way to suit you? And we're constantly talking about staying relevant with what we do, with the emergence of social media, different types of social media, and technology, and the different types of CRMs we use, and the different tools, the reporting tools. So why is it that we're not changing the way our business operates as we change?
And to support ourselves, right? One thing is to support the business and our team, but it's so easy to miss ourselves in the equation, I found. That's what I found for myself, and I find a lot of people that they forget themselves and they go business. The business will look after me if I get the business right, and they lose themselves and they get burnt out because they're unattached, right? They've literally lost themselves in the process
because they've given so much of themselves to this business that the best metaphor is that, you know, you've given. All deserts in the world at some point was actually fertile soil, Chris, right? And when you give so much of yourself and you forget to nourish who you are, and what happens is that your internal compass becomes dry like the Saharan soil. And then what happens is when the wind comes, any obstacles, any challenges, then you really just fly off with the wind, because there's no real anchor holding you down, because you have forgotten to nourish your internal self. So, and as they even say on an aircraft, right, please secure your own oxygen before you help other people. And it's not to say it's about being selfish, right? It's really truly about making sure you look after yourself first, internally, right? Internally. And whether it means, okay, you start work at 9 a.m. because you really don't want to start work at 7 a.m. And you want to finish at 3 p.m. every Friday, give yourself space, hold space for yourself to do that, because then it means that you can come back on Monday being a bigger version. And then it means that you're present for your clients, you're present for your team, you're present for yourself. And don't forget, you know, we're often on very big retainers, or we're often on retainers that is big money for our clients. It's all about perception, right? You know, it could, whatever money you're getting from your client, invoiceables, they have made a sacrifice in their business to pay you in return for a promise. So it means that you really need to show up and make sure that you deliver on that promise, because their business is also relying on you to deliver. And therefore, I think it's also important, therefore, why you need to do everything to make sure you're in the best space to show up, turn up, deliver the goods, and also finding time to constantly self-educate as well. Because as business owners, we're constantly cutting or doing the work or in the business, that we forget to get inspiration elsewhere. And particularly in the last year, you know, because I love attending conferences. You know, it's a great way for me to travel, right? But we haven't been able to do any of that. So the question is, what else are you going to do to make sure that you are self-educating? Because I'm telling you now, for example, you know what, if Google gets shut down by the federal government, the way that it's not going to happen, but, you know, you look at China, right, what they did with Alibaba, then what's going to happen? People who are just SEO specialists or PPC specialists, and you haven't de-risked your business by bringing on other services or high-value services or constantly adding value to your business, you're at really great risk because you don't own Google. That's just an example. Or if Mark Zuckerberg decides that he quits and Facebook, he believes, is an evil tool socially, and he shuts it down. I'm just saying it won't happen. Then what happens to all the Facebook marketers and social media experts and Instagram influencers attached to that industry? So I think we were very foolish if you weren't also educating yourself on the side as well.
Yeah, massive point. And if the last 18 months has taught us anything, hopefully this is what it's taught you listening at home: adaptability, agility, flexibility. We're literally seeing this on a day-by-day basis.
It really is.
Whether it's lockdowns, whether it's rule changes, whether it's shifts in environment, whether it's things affecting your business. And like you say, if you're solely reliant on one thing and that thing disappears, what do you do? So hopefully the agencies that have survived and are still around have obviously proven that adaptability and that agility to change their business models, right? Change how they're charging. So they've had to adapt. So I think that's something positive that's come out of this time. It's a major component, that self-education, staying on top of what's next. Where could I shift my business? Where could I increase revenue? What revenue streams could I add to the business? How could I better serve my clients?
And constantly looking at who are your highest value clients. We're often thinking we have to find new clients, right? We've got to fill this funnel. But the truth is, a biggest part of my growth in the last year hasn't actually really come from the new clients. I mean, that's been a percentage of it. But the biggest growth has actually been coming from clients, me going back, delivering more value, and then having the courage to ask for us to increase our retainer. And the thing is, if you deliver value and you're evoking results and you're impacting their bottom line, it's very easy then to discuss changes in your retainer or the way you service them, or even going into performance-based outcomes. And a big part of it, Chris, is because I work 30% less, and we're making more money, as an example, it's given also me more time to think about value creation. It's given me more time to focus on value creation strategies and how we can create more value for my clients, my business, and also where I see marketing moving into the next few years is I think it's going to be performance-based outcomes. Those potentially those days of, particularly in lead generation, those giant retainers may become a thing of the past, and it's going to be all about profit sharing. And if you don't prepare yourself for it, you might, I would say, not only just miss the boat, but I think the potential for growth with profit sharing is actually significantly higher.
Yeah. If you do, and it's a really important point that you make, is one of the problems, or one of the challenges, I guess, as an industry that we talked about quite a bit on the show, actually, is that it's a very low barrier to entry, right? I can do a 25-minute Facebook ads course, and I can start cold emailing clients, and I can land clients, and I can start working for them, even though I might not have depth of knowledge, right? So there's a lot of digital agencies, a lot of digital practitioners out there under-servicing clients, maybe not doing the right thing, maybe not by their own fault, right? They're just trying to get out there and get a bit of the industry because there is low barrier to entry. But a shift like that will sort the wheat from the chaff when you have when it's performance-based. And so it's an interesting point that you make that.
And not only saturating the market, I think, and I love competition, because competition increases expectations. And I think anyone who loves competition, usually I would like to think, is a high performer because they bring the best out in us. But I think the performance-based model, I think that's going to happen. And then furthermore as well, something that I've noticed with agency owners, with the younger ones or the new entrants, is you've got to really niche. You've got to ask to really compete. You've got a niche. You can't be a jack of all trades and start calling the yellow pages, right? If that still exists. And so number one, you've really got a niche. And then secondly, I think we charge more because we deliver more. But I think with the newer entrants is when they charge less. I think that's actually going to end up being a disservice to them, because then what happens, then you become resentful because you're delivering so much for not enough value coming back into your business. And then they get angry and they get resentful. And the truth is, it's actually our fault as business owners that we chose to charge less, because it means that you've set an expectation to your client that you're prepared what your value is. So I think, again, coming back to it is for business owners who want to defend their position is you've got to charge more. To survive, you have to charge more. And
it's a massive, it's a major point. We create, when we have nightmare clients, it's because we've created them.
Yes.
There's no real two ways about that. When we have these clients from hell, is, as you said, we've set the wrong expectations and they don't trust us to deliver. So they step in, they feel that they have to micromanage, they have to run the project because they don't have the trust. Like, I'm paying this guy $200. I don't know that he's going to deliver me the 200 grand that I want on the back end.
That's actually really funny.
But it's exactly, we've all seen that. We've probably all been through it and had that experience. Exactly what you're saying. That resentfulness that comes up with, I can't believe they're only paying me $1,000 a month and I'm doing $5,000 worth of work. How dare they? But I didn't ask for $5,000.
Correct.
So whose fault is it that the client's operating under that proviso? So I think that's a massive point, that the more you charge, the more you come in as the strong position, and as long as you can still deliver off the back of that, that's the big piece. If I'm only charging $1,000 a month because I can really only give you $1,500 in value, that's one thing, compared to give me 10 and I'll make you 100. So there has to be the right value balance there as well. But I think that's a major insight there for the folks listening at home, that don't get resentful if you got shitty clients. It's your own fault.
Yes. And look, and you know what, Chris, we've all been there.
Yeah. It hurts. It resonates because we've all been there and done that and gone, why does this guy keep showing up at the office and sitting over my shoulder while I'm designing the thing?
Yeah, and why the third email in 24 hours? But I think the one thing that I did learn moving into Berlin is, I actually is, that the business model, sharing that business model is you reduce your overheads, right? Because now I don't have an office to service. And so that's a really big thing. And then furthermore, when you're prepared to increase your prices, then your margin expands. And then when your margin expands, then you have more space to really do cool stuff, right? Because now you have more budget. You can actually invest in more creative marketing, not just for your clients, but for yourself.
You can bring better resources to projects, right?
Totally. And bigger clients have bigger budgets. Better clients have bigger budgets. And when they have bigger budgets, again, it comes back to you can take risks for them. Yeah, you get to be more creative as well, right? You get to take creative risks. You take more creative risks. And sure, I'll probably say 50% never work out. But that 50%, when you're taking that creative risk with your client's blessing, and on both of your time, like, you think about it, you're getting paid to be creative, to take a risk on their money, and of course, if it pays off, they get exponential growth as well. That's a pretty great apprenticeship, to be honest, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool situation when you get it set up right. It's pretty amazing. But the funny thing about creativity and the way we set agencies up is that we set ourselves up to operate, hustle, grind, push, no time for anything else. But creativity operates in space, right? The more space and time I have, the more inspiration strikes out of nowhere. And then I can deliver more, right? I can come up with that idea when I'm not trying. So it's an interesting dichotomy.
And you don't have that pressure that it needs to work out, you know. I'm sure I'm not sure if you watched it, but I watched last night penalty shootout for the
Yeah.
World Cup, and it was heartbreaking for England because, and I'm sorry, Italy, but for most of the game, England played a solid game, and even actually all through the semis, the quarters and the semis, they played a really great game. They were skilled, they were offensive, but in the end they choked because it came down to that final moment at penalty. But it comes back to the business, right? If you have really cool clients, bigger budgets, and you are capitalized as a business owner already, and then you can do really incredible work. And another thing, Chris, a big part of my growth has come from clients willing to pay me more because I was trialing different methods and different strategies and using different technology, and it paid off for one client. And then now we're rolling it out to other clients. And when it shows and it pays off for them, they're willing to give you more business, and they're willing to stay even more loyal to you. Because because the churn in any agency comes from two things: lack of value creation and lack of communication. Those are the two biggest reasons any agency gets churn of clients. And so when you're constantly value creating and you're constantly communicating, you don't lose a client. And for me, I would rather not lose a client than to win a new one.
Yeah, mate, like you said, that is where that sustainable long-term growth is, by not churning, having to go out and get 10 clients every month, just having a stable base where, as you said, you can go off, get a bit of budget and have that relationship to say, hey, look, if you've got 10, 20 grand, but there's this new thing on TikTok coming out, we'd love to, or whatever it is, right? We'd love to put some stuff over here on Clubhouse, or this new platform, or this new tech, or some VR space, whatever it is, right? We want to put some budget over here, try this thing out. If you've got that relationship, you'll find and you've done it before, you'll find that clients will step up and go, hey, great, yeah, look, we've got a bit of spare budget, try it out. Let's see what happens. And like you said, if it pays off, you can then roll that thing out, and you've done that thing now, and you can roll it to other clients. If it doesn't work out, hey, at least you tried, and you've got some lessons, and you've run some experiments.
And your clients expect you to try, Chris, right? If you've been with a client, if you've kept a client for over a year and you're only just doing the same thing over and over for them, I think then you're starting to really have to question what value you are creating. And, clients should never come to you and say, hey, I heard about TikTok as an example. Or I've heard about this thing called LinkedIn. They're not the ones that should be coming to you. You need to be going to them. And as I explain to my team all the time, if a client follows us up on a project, we failed. It means that somewhere the communication chain has broken, because if we're constantly keeping someone in the loop and we're giving them love, they won't have to come back to us.
Yeah, love it. So much value, so many insights from somebody that's been there and done that and had great success. I really appreciate you coming on, Gia.
Thank you, Chris.
If people want to find out more about you, get connected to you, there's a few places up on screen, but where are the best places for people to come and find you?
I think the best way really is through email, just gia@elitedigitalcampaigns.com.au. I think it's really important to share stories. So I think I'm confident to know that there's got to at least be a few of your listeners out there that are agency owners that have been thinking about, going completely digital and perhaps concerned. So I think I would really love to open that floor up to conversation if they want to learn more about how I did it, and also give them some of the tips on how I was able to, have that life change. Because I think if you can do it, I think you have a duty to share with the world how you did it.
Yeah, love it. It's a hell of a journey you've been on. I'm sure this is only the start of things to come. Thanks so much for connecting. It's been amazing. So hearing your story and hearing your perspective on things, and heaps of value. A lot of our really, really sort of secret source stuff has come out today's episode. Yeah, a lot of stuff that the folks at home can definitely have a good long think about. So I appreciate a practitioner that sort of has these deep insights and is willing to share them. So yeah,
Pleasure.
thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your, looks like a beautiful day there in Berlin while we wrap up our day here in Australia. Oh, gorgeous. You're not missing the Australian winter, I imagine.
Oh my God, I'm not at all. But you know what? The winter was so brutal here.
Well, yeah. That is the opposition. You do have pretty brutal winters there.
So don't be jealous. It was. I feel like I've been to hell and back. So I deserve every single bit of sunlight. But I'm really lucky. Exactly. Like my apartment is sun-soaked. Yeah.
Oh wow, amazing. Please go enjoy. Thank you so much for dropping by. I appreciate you. And thank you for taking the time and sharing your knowledge here. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks so much, Gia.